17
Is
is.
this working?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Senator Suzanne Bonamici. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I represent Senate District 17, which is in both Washington and Multnomah counties. It ranges from Jackson School Road on the west side all the way down into the Pearl District in northwest Portland. It's a very culturally and economically diverse district. I'm going to tell you a bit about my background. I'll review some of the work that I've done in the past in the legislature, and then I'm going to talk about my priorities for the upcoming session. I've spent most of my adult life working to improve public education and also working to make sure that consumers don't become victims of scams. I attended college and law school at the University of Oregon. After graduating from law school, I moved to Washington, D.C., where I worked at the Federal Trade Commission in what was then called the Credit Practices Division. I was working on federal credit laws in the financial services industry, including truth in lending, and enforcing mortgage fraud cases before they were on the front pages of the paper. I met my husband Michael in Washington, D.C., and more than 20 years ago we moved from Washington, D.C. to Washington County. I joined a law firm in Portland where I continued working on consumer protection issues with a specialty in franchise law. We then had 2 children, and I quickly discovered that they were more fun than the lawyers that I was working with. And I was fortunate enough to be able to take a career break, and I became an active volunteer in the community. I served 2 terms on the Beaverton Education Foundation. I volunteered in many schools. I was a court tour guide for the Classroom Law Project, which is a legal education organization. And I served on nonprofit arts boards, working to improve my community. And then in 2001, I worked as a legislative assistant in the Oregon House of Representatives. And in late 2005, made the decision to run for the House of Representatives, which I did in 2006 when I was first elected to the House. I served in the Oregon House of Representatives in the 2007 session. And then in 2008, when our then Senator Brad Avakian was appointed as our labor commissioner, I was then appointed to serve as the senator for Senate District 17, and in 2008 elected to the remainder of that term. So that's why I was elected in 2008, and typically the Senate term is 4 years, but I am running again in 2010. In the Senate, I serve as the chair of the Senate Committee on Consumer Protection and Public Affairs, and I also serve on the Education and the Judiciary Committees. My recent work includes authoring and passing the Access to Business Capital Act. This is a bill that streamlines the process for entrepreneurs and small businesses to apply for and receive loans through Business Oregon and their loan funds. Business Oregon is our state economic development department. The day after the governor signed that bill, a loan was made to a small business in Salem that is allowing them to maintain jobs in the private sector right here in Oregon. I also worked on several consumer protection bills, especially addressing the rights of Oregonians facing foreclosure, both homeowners and tenants. Tenants are often the innocent victims in foreclosure, and we passed strong legislation in the 2009 session, which we adjusted in 2010 after the U.S. Congress passed a similar legislation giving additional rights to tenants. When I found out that Oregon had one of the weakest lemon laws in the country, a lemon law is a law that protects buyers of defective automobiles, I worked hard to pass what is now a much stronger lemon law, giving Oregonians better rights if they buy a car that's defective. Also worked on regulating predatory financial practices. With my leadership, Oregon now has the strongest bill in the country against something called stranger-originated life insurance. Those are scams where investors and hedge funds would approach seniors, give them incentive to purchase a life insurance policy with the beneficiary being not the consumer's family, but the investor. So in fact, these investors were actually gambling on the early demise of the seniors. And I'm proud to say that that is not going to be happening in Oregon with the bill that we passed in the 2009 session. My priorities, if I'm honored with re-election in November, are to continue to build the economy. I'm already working with Business Oregon to make some changes to the Access to Business Capital Act. We put a sunset date on it when we passed it to make sure that the provisions were working well, and they are. So I have legislation to remove that sunset and to continue that program that's helping small businesses. And they use the funds to leverage private capital as well. Education is a significant priority, not only for me, but for the people in my district. So as a member of the Education Committee, I work to make sure that we are using our dollars wisely. I support maintaining the important teacher mentoring program that we have that helps slow down the rates of turnover among teachers. I also am very committed to arts and music education, and I'm proud of Beaverton for receiving an I-3 grant from the federal government that's going to be allowing Beaverton to integrate arts curriculum throughout their schools. Revenue reform is very important in our state. We have a very volatile combination. We are overly dependent on one source of income, our income tax, and combined with the kicker, that's not a good prescription for long-term fiscal stability. We must keep working on reform that will bring a more stable revenue structure, including a stronger rainy day fund that will allow us to save for the next inevitable economic downturn. Consumer protection is another issue where I will continue to work. As scams become more sophisticated, we try to be out in front of them, make sure that consumers don't get taken advantage of. One of the things I'm working on now for the next session includes free trial offers, which typically get consumers stuck into receiving unwanted monthly shipments of things like memory pills or magic berry juice that will cause guaranteed weight loss. It's surprising to find out that many of these companies, when the consumer wants to sign up for the free trial offer, they don't get to ask questions because they're giving their information to a recorder. What is your name? What is your address? What is your credit card number? Now, hopefully most people hang up when they get to that, but unfortunately some people don't. So we're working on legislation to require better disclosure before a consumer is committed financially. Other areas include smarter public safety. I know Representative Riley mentioned there was an article in the Oregonian yesterday about Texas and how they're doing an excellent job keeping our communities safe, but using the dollars wisely, making sure that the most violent people are, of course, incarcerated, but that people who need to have treatment and can be supervised with enhanced parole and probation, that we're implementing those policies to use our dollars better. And of course, environmental issues that make Oregon such an important and wonderful place, exceptional place, in fact, to live and raise a family. Please let me know your ideas and your priorities. I've been honored in the past to introduce bills on behalf of constituents, and it's really rewarding to see those go through the legislative process and to have the constituents come down and testify in support of the bills. Again, I'm Senator Suzanne Bonamici. I do welcome your input, and I would be very honored to have your vote. I am looking forward to answering your questions. Thank you very much.